AT&T Legacy employees, and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Sam, and in just a second, we're going to be joined by Tyson Mavar, one of our AT&T focused financial advisors. Today we have a specifically curated webinar just for Legacy employees, going over some very strategic pension planning tips. Before Tyson comes on, though, I'd like to quickly remind you that we are not AT&T here. We are not endorsed nor affiliated by AT&T. We are a completely independent group of financial advisors. Next, you can use the description box below if you're watching this live on YouTube, or the links that will pop up right above our heads here if you're on Quick Meeting. Those are direct links you can use to get to our calendar, where you can book a free 15 or 30-minute block of time to speak to either Tyson Mavar himself or another one of our AT&T focused advisors to get started or updated on your retirement planning. Next, you can ask questions. Ask away. There is a Q&A box. It's completely anonymous. Tyson will not have time to answer your questions live today, but I will make sure someone can answer your question after the presentation has ended, either through phone or email. And last, please consider following us here on YouTube as well as over on LinkedIn. We post a lot of content for AT&T employees and retirees, so we really think you get value out of it if you considered giving us your follow. And if you do, thank you so much in advance. And with that, we're going to kick it over now to Tyson Mavar to get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar series today. My name is Tyson Mavar, one of the AT&T benefits specialists here with the retirement group of Wealth Enhancement Group. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Today, we're going to be talking about some issues with the AT&T Legacy Management Pension Plan. As many of you know, myself and my colleagues from the retirement group, we've worked for a number of decades with AT&T employees on their retirement plans. A good number of our clients came from AT&T, our retired clients, and we still have many active clients that are still working for AT&T. Today's subject matter focuses specifically on the ALM program, the AT&T Legacy Management Program, which is much different than the non-bargain program, the craft programs. There's many different pension plans at AT&T. And we have a whole series of webinars on YouTube and various other avenues related to the other pension plans. But if you are not part of the ALM program or you're not a Legacy T employee, this may not be all that relevant to you. But today we're going to be talking about some of the issues with the interest rates on the pension plan, the crediting methods, how that's changed over time, and some common mistakes that we see people making when they're planning for their retirement as a AT&T Legacy Management employee. So first off, to be eligible for this ALM program, you had to have been hired or rehired prior to 2007. And they've changed the pension plan many times over the years. But if that's you, you'll know by logging into the Fidelity Net Benefits website if you're on the ALM program, the AT&T Legacy Management Program. And what they do to calculate your plan, they're going to give you credits based on interest rates and your continued service with the company, as long as you work for the company, that go into this cash balance account. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions that we hear and see with employees that are planning for their retirement is that this cash balance account that you see when you log in to the Net Benefits website without running an actual estimate, they're going to show you this cash balance account, and that is not your pension lump sum. Oftentimes, it's a lower number than what we find to be the full lump sum payout. So it requires a little bit further digging and running of projections to understand what's your actual single life annuity, what's your joint survivor annuity options, and ultimately what's the lump sum, which is not going to be that cash balance number. So normal retirement age, as AT&T considers it, specifically for the Legacy T folks, is age 65. However, you can retire prior to age 65 and still get your full pension payout. This is just what they call normal retirement. As it turns out, you also have to commence your benefit right after you leave the company if you retire on or after your 65th birthday. Whereas somebody who leaves prior to their 65th birthday has the ability to defer the election of their pension. And the reason this is important is because we'll talk a moment in how the interest rates affect the lump sum, but there could be an argument to be made for waiting to take your pension. In the example where interest rates are falling, if we retire this year and predict that interest rates will be lower next year, we may want to wait several months to claim our pension, to make our election so that we can get more money in our lump sum. Now, you cannot do that if you retire on or after your 65th birthday, but it's an important distinction to make about the normal retirement age of 65. And this cash balance account, it's a hypothetical account that the company will put money into based on your service credits and your interest credits. Well, like I mentioned earlier, that's not your full lump sum. There's two conversions that have to be done with that cash balance account. First, the company has to convert that to a single life annuity. And then to get the full lump sum amount, they have to reconvert that back into a lump sum using the 417E, part of the IRS code that resulted from the Pension Protection Act back in 2006. It required companies, when they're doing these conversions, to use a certain table of both life expectancy and current interest rates, the interest rates that we follow on an annual basis, which are based on corporate bond interest rates. That's what's going to define what your actual lump sum is. And we'll go through a real life scenario so that you can do a little bit deeper digging to understand what's your actual pension benefit and verify that it's correct when you're going to make your elections. Now, the forms of payment, of course, the lump sum has been very popular for a number of years, even after interest rates have gone up and many of our clients' lump sums have gone down. But it's not the only option, and there's certainly some merits for these various annuity options. The single life annuity is going to be the highest monthly payout as compared to all the other annuity options. There's several joint and survivor options wherein you can have a pension payment that's good for 2 lifetimes, often for you and your spouse, but doesn't have to be. But of course, those are going to be for a lesser amount because the life expectancy of 2 individuals is always longer than the life expectancy of 1 individual. And it also is a function of not only your birth date, but the age of your joint survivor, whoever that might be. The younger your joint survivor is, the longer the life expectancy is, and the lower the annuity payout is going to be as a result of this. Now, how the percentages work is the 100% joint survivor is going to mean no change in the pension payout upon your death. Your joint annuitant will receive the same amount as you received during your lifetime, you, the AT&T retiree. But there's these other options wherein you can get more money during your lifetime together, in the case of a spouse, but the payout will be reduced upon your death. It could be reduced 75% or 50%, so that your joint survivor, whether it's your spouse or somebody else, is getting a lower payout, but what that entitles you to is more money in the early years of your retirement. Now, everybody's circumstances are different. You may or may not have a spouse that has a pension plan. You may have a discrepancy in ages, depending on whether or not either of you plan to work beyond your career at AT&T. There's a lot of variables here that we map out in our retirement cash flow analysis so we can start to uncover what's likely going to be the optimal solution for your retirement income given what we know about your situation. So let us know if you haven't had us do this cash flow analysis. It's a complimentary service we offer to everybody at AT&T. Whether or not you're a client of ours, we encourage you to do it because usually is going to shed some light on the different decisions that you have as you approach retirement and what's likely going to improve your situation to have a sustainable retirement plan the best. Of course, there's a full lump sum, but there's also a partial lump sum for many employees, not very popular in my experience, but still needs to be considered because you may be attracted to both the benefits of lifetime income as well as the flexibility, both for death benefit and investment purposes of the lump sum. And we also have clients that like the idea of guaranteed lifetime income, but still take the lump sum because they want to control that income better, and whether it's through an insurance company or a number of different avenues. And then they'll use a portion of that lump sum to purchase their own private annuity. So there's a lot of flexibility on how you could take these benefits. Now, the basic benefit credit has to do with the salary credits that AT&T is going to give you. They don't give these until the very end of the year. Although a common misconception I hear from people is if they retire in the middle of the year, they're not going to get any pension credits for that service their last year at the company, that partial year, which is not the case. There is going to be a partial credit given depending on your retirement date in the middle of the year so that you get a prorated portion of these credits, both the interest credits and the salary credits. And as it turns out, these interest credits actually continue even after you leave the company. They're going to be based on the 30-year Treasury interest rate, which, as many of you probably know, is much higher today than it was 4 years ago. And another argument potentially to leave your pension alone after you leave the company, not necessarily roll it over right away, which is something that we will talk to you about the merits of leaving in the plan versus rolling it over as soon as possible. The salary credits, the service credits, also go up the older you get. And now these changed a couple years ago when AT&T changed both the non-bargain program and the ALM plan. No surprises, they made it less lucrative. They reduced the crediting factor so the pensions aren't growing as well as they were previous to this change. I believe it was in 2021. But it's still an additional incentive to continue working as you get older in age because your pension credits actually get better the older you get. Now, many of you probably also know that interest rates affect the lump sum payout, and it's an inverse relationship wherein when interest rates go up, your lump sum goes down. This is evaluated once per year at AT&T on January 1st, and they are going to look at the November interest rates of the previous year, which there are three of. They call the segment rates, first, second, and third segment rate, to calculate what your lump sum is going to be this year. And that continues to change even after you retire if you wait to take your pension. So let's say here in 2025, you retire in the middle of the year, your lump sum is X. You wait to take it until next year and interest rates are lower based on whatever November of this year's interest rates were. Your lump sum is going to be greater next year because of those lower interest rates. Same thing on the other side. If interest rates went up this year, it's possible your lump sum could go down into future years. And this needs to be carefully looked at for somebody who's not only approaching retirement, but especially after retirement if you elect to wait on commencing your pension benefit. Now here's a list, I'll zoom in the table here, of previous year's interest rates. Now we're showing March 2025 interest rates on the top here because that's the most recently available data that we have. And they're normally going to update these rates monthly. The IRS does this on or around the 20th of the following month. So on or around May 20th, we should have the April interest rates. Of course, these rates don't matter on your pension calculation. It's the November rates that are relevant. However, we track these throughout the year to get an idea of what direction our interest rates going and should we consider retiring this year as a result of rising interest rates. If we do retire, should we consider waiting on the pension as a result of falling interest rates? These will help us make good decisions, and it could mean tens of thousands of dollars more in your pension payout depending on how quickly interest rates move throughout the year. You can see the current rates for 2025 were based off of November 2024. That's highlighted in yellow. You can see there's three segment rates that are used to calculate your pension lump sum. The second segment rate carries by far the most weight in the calculation. It carries close to 60% of the weight, which means it's only about 20% for the first and the third segment rate. So this is the one that we follow the closest. And you can see those rates have actually climbed a little bit this year in 2025. Not by too much. A good rule of thumb to remember is for every 1% increase to these interest rates, you can expect roughly a 10% drop in your lump sum. And same in the other direction. If interest rates fall by 1%, you might see an increase of close to 10%. That is a function of your age. Somebody who's only 55 when they take their pension, it might be closer to a 12% increase in your lump sum for every 1% drop to rates. Somebody who's in their mid-60s is going to receive a little bit less sensitive change to their lump sum based on interest rates. It might only be an 8% increase to your lump sum with every 1% drop in rates. And you can model this in the net benefits website. When we gather your information for your retirement analysis, we'll walk you through that and point some things out to you that you might not have considered before. Often we run multiple retirement scenarios with multiple assumptions on what interest rates are doing, especially for somebody who's not retiring for a while. And you can see these rates have come up, although 2025 is lower than 2024. So lump sums did improve on January 1st. Interest rates have gone up the last several years. They bottomed out in 2021 based off of the interest rates that were historically low in 2020 through the pandemic. Lump sum payouts were very high, but I started my career working with AT&T employees back in 2011, and the interest rate environment that we're in today is fairly close to what it was back when I started my career almost 14 years ago working with AT&T employees. And we still had a lot of people taking the lump sums, even though lump sums are lower in a higher interest rate environment. Presumably, you'll be able to earn more interest on that money with the portion of your funds that are going into fixed income investments like bonds, CDs, annuities. The equity side of the portfolio might not be as impacted by interest rate changes, but a typical retirement portfolio is going to have some fixed income investments, and those fixed income investments are paying a lot more today than they were 4 years ago. Now, here's an example, and I'll zoom this one in too. This is a real world example. One of our clients who was planning to retire in 2022. This is what you will see when you log into the Net Benefits Modeler. If you click on your ALM program and actually click the Estimate tab, so rather than just pulling the cash balance number that comes up on the summary page, click on the Estimate tab and model some scenarios of different retirement dates as well as different benefit commencement dates. You can see this individual, there's no change to the interest rates. Those are the zeros there for the lump sum segment rates. And there's a button you could click on after you model the numbers. It's called Calculation Details. That's what this arrow is pointing at here. When you do that, it's going to pull up a several page document that shows the details of how they're coming up with these numbers. And I'll point out this cash balance account projected to normal retirement age. That's that 688,000 and change. That is not this person's actual lump sum, but that is what they see on the summary page when they first log in. Now, based on what the interest rates were, and there's a lot of other information here related to your annuity payouts. You can see that for this person was $3,500. Now you see below, toward the bottom of this page, at the very bottom, there's this qualified 417E minimum lump sum of almost $811,000, substantially more than that cash balance account number. And that has to do with that double conversion I talked about earlier, where they convert your cash balance into annuity and then reconvert it based on rules that were put together in the Pension Protection Act for 417E deferred conversions. And that's what's creating the higher lump sum number. And this person also wasn't 65 yet, but that cash balance is projected for age 65. That's another reason there's a discrepancy on your actual pension amount versus what you see on the summary page. Now, this was also in that very low interest rate environment. You'll see the 3 segment rates that were being used to calculate this. Now we're going to go over and look at another retirement date projection. Same individual. This person now changed the interest rates, and look what happened to their lump sum. This was a real world scenario from 2022 to 2023. That lump sum fell from 810,000 in their case down to 578,000, the number at the very bottom again, which now is a lower number than what they were seeing on their cash balance account on the summary page. Certainly worth knowing about when you're planning for your retirement, not only for figuring out how long you need to work to have a successful retirement, but also picking the best day to maximize what you walk away with in your pension plan. Now, it turns out those interest rates do not affect the annuity payout. So if interest rates are climbing and your lump sum is falling, you still have the option to take the annuity, and your annuity would not have fallen in that case. In fact, in a rising interest rate environment, the interest credit going forward is going to be even higher. So interest rates have a dual effect on your pension. They're going to reduce the lump sum in a rising interest rate environment, but increase the growth rate of those interest credits that are going into your plan every year. And what we found statistically, unfortunately to us, this baffles me and many of my colleagues, 74% of Americans over the age of 50 don't have a written plan for their retirement. Now, this is just unacceptable given how important putting together a sound retirement plan becomes. It's unsurprising given how uncomfortable it is to think about retirement for most of us. It's just some future date that we think about. It's that next phase in life that comes with a lot of changes and is just uncomfortable statistically for a lot of us. But there's no reason to wait on this, especially when a number of firms, including ours, will do this for you for free on a complimentary basis. We'll put a retirement plan together for you. We'll give you a complimentary consultation on what to look out for, make sure that you're saving correctly in your 401k, help you with your investment allocations to make sure you're not taking too much risk or too little risk, and also talk to you about our company's services. There's no obligation to do business with us if you're willing to spend some time with us. But we will talk to you about the cost of our service, our value proposition, and we feel that we have a very compelling story on why you might consider working with us, in part just because of the several decades that we've been working with AT&T. Employees enjoy a reputation, a very good one, within the community, and have many clients and references from AT&T that have all been clients and many of them for a number of years, but many of them have already gone through this rather uncomfortable transition out of AT&T. And we're happy to furnish references if you'd like to talk to some of our clients. But here's some of the things that people tell me why they like to work with us, not just because we know the benefits plans, but because we specialize in retirement income planning. We have offices throughout the country, and we have a complimentary retirement plan that even if you already have an advisor, maybe you're planning on doing everything on your own, whatever the case may be, we're happy to do this for you because we know there's a high probability you might recommend us to some of your coworkers, even if you don't become a client of ours. If you'd like to meet with myself or one of my colleagues that understands the AT&T benefits plans, you can email us at info@theretirementgroup.com. You could call us at the home office at 800-900-5867. You could take a picture of this QR code here on the left to get onto mine or one of my colleagues' calendars. Or you could just follow us on LinkedIn, where we will publish this and many other webinars that we've done specific to the AT&T plans, and then some others that are more generic to estate planning, tax and distribution strategies, investment strategies, and some of the other concepts that we believe are important to someone who's approaching their retirement from AT&T. So with that, we'll wrap it up for today's webinar series. Thanks so much, everybody, for spending some time with us. Everybody have a good, safe rest of your week. We hope to talk to you very soon.